Welcome to Autodesk Inventor. To get started, find your Autodesk Inventor icon, your orange eye on your desktop, and go ahead and double click on it to open it. And when you do, you should get a screen similar to this. It might say Start Working and Start Learning and give you those two options to click. Go ahead and click on Start Working if that option is there so we can get started. And before we start working or building anything, there's a few concepts we need to go over. And the first one is the different types of files. There are four main types of files in Autodesk Inventor: parts, assemblies, drawings, and presentations. Today we're mainly going to talk about parts, assemblies, and drawings. And to look at these types of files more in detail, let's go ahead and click on New. Not the drop-down arrow, but the file above it instead. And when you do, you should get this Create New File window pop up. And you can see the different types of files. We've got parts, we've got assemblies, we've got drawings, and we've got presentations. And if you click on each one, it'll tell you details about the type of file. So if we click on standard assembly, again, we will see the details there are to know about this type of file. And the same thing for a standard drawing file. Now, you might notice that on a standard part file, it ends in .ipt. In the same way that a Word document ends in .doc, and the same way that a PowerPoint file ends in .ppt. All part files will end in .ipt, and all assembly files will end in .iam, and all drawing files will either end in IDW or DWG. Odds are it'll end in IDW for our class. And so let's go ahead and actually look at each one of these types of files. And so if you look here, I have a couple of part files that I've already created. I've got my green piece.ipt and I've got my red piece.ipt. And what are these? Well, these are just part files that I've created in Autodesk Inventor just by sketching them out and building them up. And so that's pretty easy. I can actually just start a new sketch on any face, and on here I can sketch something, and then I can extrude that piece up. It's actually pretty simple and pretty intuitive. Let me go ahead and actually undo all of this off of my file. And so, okay, I built multiple pieces. I built multiple parts. You might be asking yourself, well, what do I do with these parts once I build them? And well, that's what assembly files are for. We make an assembly and we drop all of these parts in. I can very easily place a nether piece in if I want to, and then assemble it together with these other parts. And you can see how they all sort of come together, and you can assemble our full puzzle cube out of our individual puzzle cube parts. And of course, then we have our drawing files. And our drawing files are just sheets. They're essentially just sheets where you put down multi-views of your part so you can give all the details of the part, such as dimensions. And so if you look here, I've got this green piece and I've got the front view, the top view, and the side view. And you might not know what I'm talking about. When I say the side view, I mean this is the right side view. That is this view right here, this L. And if I look at this from the front, all I would see is this face. And so we can actually go back to our green piece and see what I'm talking about. But if I look at this from the front, all I can see are these two faces. So you can kind of get the idea. And then our top view up here, if I look at this from the top, this is all I can see. And that kind of makes sense. And so that's the point of a drawing file. And now that we've looked at the three types of files that we're going to start with today, let's go ahead and go back to our green piece and let's try to break down what we see in an Inventor window. And so let's start with this big bar up here. This is known as our ribbon. This is where all our features are. All the cool things that we do to our 3D modeling is up here. This white bar right here is known as our browser. Sometimes it's known as our model. And you will hear me use those two terms interchangeably. And then this big screen right here is known as our graphics screen. It's where all of our graphics are. And each one of these three main windows has its own details and nuances within it. And so, for example, up here in our ribbon, we have our different tabs. And so we've got our 3D model tab, our sketch tab, our annotate tab, etc., etc. And within our 3D model tab, we have different panels. We have create, modify, explore, work features, pattern. If we look in sketch, we have other panels that we can look at. And of course, within each panel, we have our various features. Things like extrude, revolve, sweep, loft, chamfer, shell. These are all our different features. And then when we look in our browser or our model, you can see it has the order of how I built this shape. And so what do I mean? I mean, this was the very first extrusion that I made. If I go in and edit it, you'll see that's all we see is that one extrusion. And then this is my second extrusion. And so off of this shape that I built, I extruded out this shape. And then of course, this was my third extrusion. And within each extrusion, you can see the shape that each one was built on. So if I open this up, you can see the original shape that I started with. And then if I open this one up, you can see the shape that I built off of this first extrusion. And so you get the idea. You can see what I built, how I built it, in the order that I built it within my browser. And sometimes you will accidentally, I can tell you from experience, you will accidentally delete your browser. You'll close it out. And if this ever happens, it's pretty easy to get it back. You just need to go back into your ribbon, go to View, User Interface, and turn back on your model browser. And actually, this is a good way to get back many of your items that you might accidentally close out. And within our graphics screen, we have a few things to look at as well. Right here, this cube that you can look at with all the views on it, we call our view cube. And then what about that home button above the view cube? So if I look at the back or look at a different angle, if I click that home button, it'll take me to the home view or the isometric view. And this bar off to the right is called our navigation bar, and it has all our navigation controls within it. So for example, I can actually add more. I can take out and add various navigation controls. And if I turn on visual styles, I can change how I look at this. I can make this look different. I like it with shaded with edges, but you get the idea. And the last thing I want to talk about is this up here. This area is our quick access toolbar. It's where you can find your file option or your orange eye option. It's where you can find your save, your undo, your open, your new file. And of course, it's just a quick way to get there. If you go to your home screen, you can obviously find all these things as well. But like I said, it's just a quick way to grab those various tools. And so now that you're somewhat familiar with navigating through Autodesk Inventor, in our next video, we are going to create a project folder and start building some shapes.